Here is my audience. And let's get started. So if you were anything like me as a child, you used to fake sick to stay at home just to watch The Price is Right. And do you remember at the end of every episode, Bob Barker would look straight into the camera and he would say, "Don't forget to spay and neuter your pets." I'm Alana, and today I'm going to persuade you the importance as to why it is important to spay and neuter your pet. I'm going to be touching on the following topics of spaying and neutering and the beneficial factors that go into reducing the pet population, creating healthier lives and better behavior for your pets, and the cost effectiveness of having the procedure. So let's dive right into it. What's spaying and neutering anyway? Well, spaying is the act of sterilizing a female, and neutering is the act of sterilizing a male animal. The ages for getting the procedures done are variable in different animals, but today I'm going to be discussing dogs and cats as to they are the most popular animal to have as a pet. So for dogs, the procedure is typically done between 6 and 9 months, and cats are typically done as little as 8 weeks, but no more than 5 months. Of course, these ages vary, so it's important to consult with your veterinarian just to ensure that your dog is healthy enough and mature enough for the procedure. The recovery time is about 7 to 14 days on average. As the owner, you are required a list of criteria to ensure that your pet is healing properly. This includes making sure that your dog doesn't, or cat, doesn't run or jump for 2 weeks. So it might be best to keep them in a quiet place indoors, away from other animals to make sure that they aren't riled up. Something else to consider is making sure that your pet doesn't lick the incision. So it might be best to get one of those, cone collars that surrounds their face to prevent them from licking the wound. Something else is to be sure not to bathe your pet for up to 10 days after the procedure. And of course, as the owner, you will be responsible for checking that incision daily to ensure that it's healing properly. So, as I mentioned before, spaying and neutering helps reduce the pet population. Well, why is that important? There are numerous of animal shelters scattered around the country, and some of these shelters are kill shelters. What that means is that for animals that are overbred in a litter and unwanted, they go to these kill shelters, and if that dog or cat isn't adopted in a certain period of time, they're euthanized. 3.5 million pets per year are euthanized in these kill shelters. Other animals that end up dying are street roamers and wanderers. You might have seen them before. They're typically emaciated and mangy and, aren't very well cared for because they don't have someone to care for them. These pets carry diseases and can sometimes be hit by cars, which is upsetting for everyone involved. Something not so sad is that this creates a healthier life for your pet, being spayed or neutered, and creates better behavior. Females don't go into heat, which means that this reduces howling and frequent urinating, which will probably end up in your house, as well as detract attention from unwanted males. And of course, they won't bleed. So again, less mess up for you to clean. For males that are neutered, they are typically better behaved. And this includes preventing those undesirable sexual behaviors. So less barking, less urine marking, less male aggression, and less urge to roam, but of course less humping, which can sometimes be, mostly embarrassing, but sometimes comedic, especially when you have a friend come over to your house. As I mentioned, this reduces male aggression. So your males, if you have multiple male pets, they will get along better. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't want to get the procedure done because it's going to change my pet. And you're right, it will change your pet, but it won't change your pet's personality. It'll just change their behavior for the better. And that's what we want as owners, right? We don't want to be as frustrated with, an uncontrollable pet. So another thing to consider is that spaying and neutering extends the life of your pet about 20% longer than ones that aren't spayed or neutered. This can be caused by numerous factors. One of them is, like I mentioned before, it reduces the urge to roam. So, they won't be at risk for fighting with other pets or males or females, and they won't be at risk for, at high risk, I should say, for being hit by cars. Another major factor in this is that being spayed and neutered reduces the risks of cancers and infections in those reproductive systems, especially if the female is spayed before her first heat. This reduces the risk tremendously for uterine infection, breast cancer. In males, it's prostate cancer. And a lot of people don't realize that pets can get those type of illnesses as well. Now it's time to talk about the cost effectiveness of it. So a procedure can typically be between $200 and $300. There are free clinics and low-cost clinics available in your area. You can find these by looking online or by consulting with your veterinarian. They can most likely refer you to one of these places. And a lot of people will say, well, $200, $300, that's quite a bit of money. And it is, but comparing to the cost of having a litter, it's really not much. You would have to consider the health costs of the birthing female, then paying for food and bedding and vaccinations and deworming, all of these things to consider if you were to have a litter of puppies. Think about it like having a newborn baby, but multiple newborn babies and how expensive just one of those is. Another thing to consider is that, for those kind of aggressive animals that you might have can be really destructive in your house, especially if a female is in heat and she makes a mess everywhere. You don't want to have to replace a rug every few months. And of course, because of the male aggression reduced, the violence towards other pets is also not really a risk factor. So you don't have to worry about the costs of having to pay for any health bills or legal fees towards other pets that are injured because of your pet. And now states are requiring licensing for people that aren't spaying or neutering their dogs or cats. So these licensings also come with renewals every year that also incur renewal fees. And think about it, your dog on average would live, 10 to 12 years, your cat possibly 20. And if you had to renew those fees every year, that certainly adds up. So we talked about how you benefit, and we talked about how your dog benefits, but thinking about it in the broader scheme of it all, the community benefits. A lot of people don't realize that your taxes go to paying for those shelters and paying for those resources for those shelters, and not to mention you're also paying for the euthanization of those animals. Another thing to consider is that diseases and infections are carried among these animals that are unwanted and overbred, and some of those infections can be transferred to humans. A lot of people are familiar with ticks and rabies and how they can progress into being lethal and deadly, and if we could just prevent it by just a procedure, it would obviously, we wouldn't have to worry about any of those catastrophes happening. And also, a lot of people don't realize that now there are laws for owners that are unlicensed breeders. So if you are just a regular owner breeding your pet and you aren't licensed, you can possibly be fined and penalized for doing so. So just to wrap it all up and hitting the major key points here, pets are members of your family, and they should be loved for and treated as such. Again, it's cost effective for you out of your wallet. It creates a healthier life for your pet and better behavior so that you can enjoy and spend more time with them. And it reduces the pet population. So it doesn't just affect you as an owner. It doesn't affect just your family, just your friends, but the entire community is benefited by spaying and neutering your pet. So just to wrap it all up, in the words of Barb Barker, don't forget to spay and neuter your pets. Thank you.